Hello and welcome to Generation Yours, the podcast that covers sustainability, tech, real estate, trying to connect boomers to Gen Z and understand the landscape of the universe. I'm Joseph Michael Daniels, founder of Elixir.
And I'm Colin Horton, founder of the self-proclaimed Horton's Valuers and Product & Co.
Lovely.
Thank you.
So, today we have a very special guest, and I usually start our podcasts with some facts. But the history of this company is quite impactful. The Glenfinnan Viaduct, you'll recognise that from such scenes as Harry Potter, and also right through to Wembley Stadium, Emirates Stadium, and probably the most sustainable building in the world, the Eden Project. And that was all deployed by the Sir Robert McAlpine company. And here today, we have the Managing Director of Buildings, Grant Findlay, to talk to us about history, sustainability, and all things construction-based.
Hey Joseph, thank you for inviting me.
Of course, we share, chairs on the UK BCSD, very proud of that.
We do.
That's how we met. But what I think our viewers and our listeners really want to understand is, what is Robert McAlpine to the normal person? Why should they care, and why should they know about Robert McAlpine?
Wow, what a question to start with. So Sir Robert McAlpine is a construction business. We're not that big a construction business. We're quite big, but not the biggest by far. But all our construction businesses in the UK are creating the built environment. That's anything other than the natural environment. So everything that construction businesses do is impacting the natural environment, how the natural environment reacts to that, and how we integrate built environment buildings, infrastructure, and how we add to that network of systems of things that support our everyday lives in terms of work, leisure, the services we get, whether it's broadband that you're watching this podcast over or it's the water you're drinking out the tap. These are all things that construction companies like Sir Robert McAlpine do. This construction company, Sir Robert McAlpine, is 154 years old, and I would say that's a long life for a construction business. Construction's tough, as you guys know, but the business has been adapting and changing and thinking about the future all the way through those 154 years, and that's one of my roles in terms of as the managing director of the business, is thinking about the next sort of changes we need to do to make us be the most sustainable and sustain the business for the future.
So we've never met before, so every question I'm going to ask is I'm just going to get to know you because I'm just literally fascinated. I put a bit in awe actually. I was like, Joe's got some good guests, and I'm just like,
don't be an
if it was down to me, we'd have a local builders from Essex on. So, I mean, it's an incredible position you're in. How'd you get there?
Oh yeah, okay, great. So young lad, brought up north of Aberdeen. Anyone who knows Scotland, beautiful country, but Aberdeen's a long way from everywhere. And I had, it wasn't big enough for me where I grew up. So at a young age of 17, left home and went to university, which you're able to do in Scotland. You could do that then, which was great. Went and studied, but I had ambitions to work in electronics or computers, which without giving my age away, that was what was kind of the big thing at the time. However, I failed that, so I never got through the engineering qualifications to do that. But I got to know and understand civil engineering and discover and understanding civil engineering was the bit of the course that I really enjoyed, and that was about how you harness the power of nature to benefit mankind. That's the kind of ethos of being a civil engineer. So as a young civil engineer qualifying, I went and started work in a company in Glasgow, so I was starting to branch out and get a little bit further away from Aberdeen. And I joined that company because they were working all over the world, and I really had ambition to travel. That was probably top of my list of things to do. So within a few years, I started working on motorway designs, and I designed the length of the motorway between Glasgow and Carlisle. And after getting qualified as a chartered engineer, which is one of the things that a young engineer wants to try and do, I got handed a ticket. It was a one-way ticket to go to Vietnam, to Ho Chi Minh City. And so my career took me to Southeast Asia, and I would recommend anyone who's interested in travelling. Construction's a great career to travel because the UK particularly exports its construction talent all over the world. So I went to Vietnam and ended up running a design team of 50 engineers who spoke Cambodian, Vietnamese to design a motorway between Ho Chi Minh City and Phnom Penh. And I was reflecting on this, in fact, just at a recent conference that Joseph and I were both at, reflecting on this because this was my first experience of sustainability, but it wasn't called sustainability. Because what we were doing was we were driving, creating economic prosperity in Southeast Asia, in the Mekong Delta, which was flooding every year, several times a year, and there was lots of poverty. So the road was going to give ability for people to access the infrastructure to get to places and trade. We were reusing materials from an old narrow road and making a wide road. We were doing all sorts of things that today you would class as good social value, good material use in sustainability in the days before we called it that. So worked out in Asia for a few years, I worked in Malaysia and then came back to UK and came into buildings. That was my first experience of buildings about 20 odd years ago, and got to know Jonathan Porritt at the time. It was a bit of a sustainability guru at the time, and I would say probably still is, but at the time was very involved in something called Forum for Future Natural Step, and that was my first real experience of the word sustainability and how we brought it into buildings and how we brought it into the way we thought about eliminating waste, about reducing carbon and reducing our impact on the planet. And ever since then, I've worked my way through various roles in just 2 building companies actually. I had a bit of a time in a client organisation, which was a privilege to be involved in that, because as a client body you're influencing and specifying what you require, and you realise how important clients are to driving this agenda. But ended up back in the contracting and building side, and now sustainability is a fundamental part of what I kind of do as my day job.
So I find it infinitely interesting when you talk about sustainability and legacy, because we used to build things to last. And you know, my common point on this, I can't remember the gentleman's name, wrote a book all about sustainable buildings, that, you know, the pyramids of Egypt, pyramids in Egypt, are the most sustainable in a sense of social, economic, environmental value. Well, yeah, sure, they're the most embodied carbon, but ultimately the life cycle, the ability for social value, the economic value it's brought for thousands of years as a landmark, that kind of makes it sustainable. I want to pose a question to you, and that question is, do you think the West has become complacent through building regulation in sustainability, and we're not building sustainability in?
I think what I see when I look around the world about what is happening is those countries who have a blank sheet of paper and who can start from scratch in developing infrastructure and developing new assets to service new communities and cities have a clear run at doing the right thing. We in the UK particularly, because of our industrial heritage, we've inherited a system of which in its day was really forward thinking in terms of bringing drinking water and sewerage and railways around the country. But those things today are constraining how we can really transform what we're doing moving forward. I think the regulatory environment is, in my view, is taking us down certain avenues at the moment. So we get lots of our clients are focused on an aspect of sustainability in carbon, decarbonisation, top agenda, probably followed shortly behind by social value. So those 2 things, which are driven by government policy and mandate, are top and are really important to servicing clients. But I think we talk often at the Business Council about the breadth and depth of the UN SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, and the point you make about the pyramids is really important, because if you consider all the SDG impact on things we do, you realise immediately we need to think more than just carbon and social value. There are lots of other aspects of what we do that if we don't consider those impacts, there's a danger we'll end up in a dead end of sustainability just being carbon and social value. So I think I have a degree of empathy with those who regulate the law. The law is what gives us where we are, but what I guess government needs to recognise the important role they have to play in how we drive those broader and wider agendas to make sure we do cover all of the SDGs, I think.
I mean, with the, so say you were advising the government on, I mean, do you guys advise the government already on sustainability?
I suppose in a way, big contractors do lead a lot of government programs. So I imagine there's a lot of, it's not, I don't think it's governance, but I think there's a lot of requirement, because the government, right, if you got rid of the top 5 main big builders contractors, they wouldn't look at HS2. I don't know if you guys are involved in HS2.
We are.
We are. Okay, maybe we'll bring that up. Maybe we won't. Maybe we'll steer clear of that conversation. But I think, I think there's an input element, right?
Yeah, so cause I think for me, because we work with a lot of, where I'm much more regional than perhaps some of the major cities in terms of my exposure to construction. We work with a lot of kind of small to medium-sized developers. What kind of advice and guidance would you give from a company of your size to some of these small, medium-sized developers on creating a product that is fundamentally sustainable, not just in its carbon footprint, but also in its kind of social values?
Good question, Cole. Good question. I think we've all got a part to play. You know, this is a system of systems, and we've got 200,000 construction companies in the UK. That's so yeah, there are 25 that account for 70-80% of the turnover, the generation of work. But for this to work, we're all going to have to play a little part in this. So I think the big companies have a role to champion, to pilot, to challenge government, to put out there new ideas, new ways of working. And a put out there is really important, because for me, I've seen sustainability for 20 years being used as a differentiator. So we do something really sustainable. We've got a really good idea. We're not going to share it because we use that to win work. And I think we're at the point now where we were with health and safety 10, 15 years ago, is that we have a moral obligation to democratise whatever we've got in terms of good ideas and encourage everyone to use it, because if we can do that, we'll lift the tide that lifts all the boats, so that we all be a little bit better, and whoever comes up with the next best idea is then what we can all follow. So I think there's much more collaboration and sharing required, and I think I can see that, we can sense that in the kind of organisations we're working with and the people we're talking to. So there's more appetite to collaborate, but I think if we could do that, then it doesn't matter what size your organisation is, you can benefit from the collective learning of the industry.
So a 154-year-old company working with maybe the smaller entities that they would for a subcontracting basis principle. Yeah. What we're actually seeing now is a lot of digital transformation and innovation. I spend all of my time working on the most impossible products to then go, you guys should use it. However, you have to weigh up risk. There's a lot of factors. How does a 154-year-old organization be 154 years old when we are in a modern century and looking towards the next 10 years, AI, gaming engines, yep, LiDAR tech? How does a company with that legacy digitally transform?
Top priority. What goes with a 150-year-old legacy is some legacy systems that are not quite 154 years old, but you're bringing behind you some things that in the day were cutting edge. You know, there's cutting edge systems we use that are no longer supported in some instances of some of the tech. But so the business has been really focused for the last 5 years on using technology and digital technology in an intelligent way, because I think there's a huge market of people generating tech products. Those don't always actually necessarily address existing problems. They create new solutions to new problems we hadn't thought about. So that's good to think about it. But the opportunity in the construction sector is using technology, whether that's analog or digital. So technology might involve new materials. It might involve adding bits of sensors to existing plant and equipment. So there's lots of places where we can use technology in a non-digital space. But in the digital space, it's thinking about what's the customer requirement and how can we automate, maybe RPA, robotic process automation, or it might be something that saves, so that would be a time-saving piece, or it might be something that just does something very much quicker than we could do as people, because we know that computers and AI are very good at computation, people are really good at context, so we still need people. It won't do. We're not going to see the construction industry devoid of jobs, are we? Let's be honest. In fact, we're short of people, aren't we? So, but using technology to help really solve today's problems and keep an eye on the future stuff. So there's lots of moving levers. One of the things, just for a hand back, because one of the things I'm really keen on is, for me, technology and digital technology isn't so much about the technology software product, it's about the data. What do we do with the data? It helps us collect the data more consistently, of a better quality, and once we've got good quality and consistent data, the world's our oyster in terms of what we can do with insight generation that helps us do better things. So that's the part I see technology.
So important, because one of the things that I came across recently, it's something that I've invested a lot of time and effort into, is it's like manufacturing is like a jungle. So John McKeown, who's the founder of a company called Galarus, right? And they do this thing called the unified namespace. Best way to describe it, the way a Tesla self-drives, it's got all these sensors inbound in, so a SpaceX. How does it take all these different things and stop the noise, but they're all speaking different languages and make it make sense? And that's what the theory of unified namespace is. And he said something really important to me. He's like, it's a jungle out there. I was like, what do you mean? He's like, it's a jungle. You're speaking with companies that are 150 years old, and they have got systems in place that have been 80s, 90s, noughties, 10s, but you have to kind of bring it together. But we're actually getting to a space now, I believe, in the digital technological revolution, using, I don't call it AI, it's large language models. Everyone's scared of AI being sentient. Like, okay, cool. You know, Stephen Bartlett did a podcast recently about it. Yep. I get the AI fear, but a lot of the things that you're looking at is just large language models that are refined. How do you take all those languages? And I think this is a really interesting time to be digitally transforming, because we are at that time now where the hardware's kind of got there to a point where we can now really start to bring these common languages, these pieces. What's your thoughts on digital transformation?
I mean, for me, like, since I've known you, the world has been opened up to me. I didn't realise there was so much potential, especially on the planning side of things. I know you're working on some really cool tech. But what I wanted to ask you, Grant, was, like, obviously your passion for sustainability is evident, you know, and it wouldn't be where you were if it wasn't for that. But disregarding if it's possible or not, what kind of sustainable kind of digital transformations would you actually personally like to see if it was even possible? What would make your life better, and what would you think would really kind of transform the construction sector?
So
you can say Elixir's technology.
I could.
You can. I'm just saying you can. It's there.
So I'll tell you about something else I do in my spare time. So 3 years ago, with a bit of help from the business, I founded a company called the Construction Data Trust. We set this up as a social enterprise, and the idea behind the Data Trust was to see because we could see what was coming down the world of AI and complex analytics capability. We thought there was a place to create, effectively, let's call it simply a bank of data. So we could scrape data from projects that have in the past, happening now, and apply machine learning and AI to that data. We could find out things we couldn't find within one organisation, and we set up as a social enterprise so we could communicate that and share that with the whole industry. So that was 3 years ago. So I founded that organisation. I still chair the board, but we're finding it really difficult to get hold of data. Two things: data and investment to get it moving. So, but the data side, your point, up until very recently, the data, there is no data standardisation in construction. The only thing that's standard in construction is pounds and minutes and days.
Pounds, pence.
Pounds and pence, that's it.
Right?
There's nothing else.
Money,
whatever anybody tells you, there's no other standard data in construction. We're all trying really hard. There's some good products out there that create some data sets from some relative data standardisation. But as a rule, and there's BIM data standardisation, some of that sort of stuff. But as an industry, we're not very good at data standardisation, which means that the data we want to scrape from projects is all in different places, formats, bits of software. The data maturity of businesses in the construction sector is not terribly advanced, so the ability to think about opening up API pipelines with data banks and other organisations to actually get to where we want to do is quite a challenge. So we're taking it kind of one step at a time. We've done a couple of pilot projects around productivity data. We're working on some health and safety pilots at the moment with small data sets. But even with those, we're able to demonstrate some real value from that sort of conceptually. So I think to accelerate sustainability, getting hold of what we do currently on sustainability, analysing it to death and then spitting out what we're finding would be a really big step towards lifting that tide.
Is there a collaborative approach amongst the big contractors?
Yeah,
are they willing to work with you on that?
Yeah, there's a lot of collaboration in the industry. Yeah, we're very fortunate with the Data Trust. We've got a group of contractors and clients that are actually supporting what we're trying to do.
Cool.
So we've got some of that. But to make it work, we know you guys know what to get data properly, to get the power of AI properly working, you need big data sets. With a graded side, better data models, you're going to get better data value. So we kind of need everyone to be part of it.
And what type of data is that for a layman listening?
Colin,
treat me as a layman.
Could be anything. I mean, often the RICS, which you'll be familiar with, the Royal Institute of Chartered Surveyors, did the survey.
One of the little. Go on. Are you like a local board member or something soon? Come on, pending.
Maybe.
Well, it's coming now. It's coming now.
Vote for Cole.
So
vote for Cole and vote for the next generation.
They did some survey on projects a few years back. It's about 3 years ago, and they discovered that 96% of data collected on a project is used once.
Wow.
So that kind of exhaust plume from projects, from the Olympics, from Crossrail, from HS2. Think what we could do with all that data if we get it in one place. We could analyse it and we could really learn. So even if we just got public project data, government data, that would be a start. But
Have you had those
non-competitive
chats with the government?
We're talking to lots of people about lots of stuff, and there's a real. I've seen a movement. What we've seen in the press over the last few weeks, really, and months around ChatGPT. Suddenly, everyone's eyes are lifted, and heads are lifted about, wow, this could really transform our business. So people are coming asking, well, what can you do to help me, and how could we help you? So I think the narrative and the dialogue is starting to shift a little bit. So yeah, I think I feel really positive about what we could do with that and where we're going.
So it's called Generationally Yours for a reason, in that a big part of the work, and it comes to data, because not many individuals, Grant, and I think this is testament to what this beautiful 154-year-old legacy construction company is doing, in that it did all this beautiful, these beautiful buildings that are common in our culture and common everywhere we see as a part of Britain, but actually moving forward digital transformation, not many people speak so elegantly on data, and Generationally Yours is about that connection to Gen Z, because there is a disconnect. There is a huge disconnect, and maybe this transform of data and people going, oh, ChatGPT, I'm actually realizing that actually, Gen Z, they know this stuff, right? I need to ask this question because it's an important question that I ask, and I feel like I wouldn't be representing all the generations if I didn't. You're the managing director of a 154-year-old legacy, incredible company that's doing big stuff. What is available for Gen Z to join? Because the job roles are different, the mindset's different, the working culture is different.
Yeah.
What are you guys looking at, and what are you looking for? Because not a lot of people talk about that. They don't talk, Gen Z, this and that. What are you looking for, and then what do you think you put in place?
So, I think one of the spin-offs of digital transformation in the construction sector, which is way too late, it's even after agriculture, it's right at the bottom of transformation of industries, is that suddenly there are roles emerging from businesses like ours that didn't exist. So we employ animators using Unreal Engine. We employ people who are developing 3D models and logistics sequences of how a building is built. They're becoming not just part of our sales and marketing material for winning new work, they're actually being used to solve problems on site. So there's a whole space of new jobs emerging in the digital space, where people who would never have looked at construction as a career would suddenly ears would prick up and say, that might be for me. I think we're also, we're working with a charity called the Career Colleges Trust to take digital skills and overlay those on traditional construction courses. So working with City of Glasgow College, which McAlpine built, so we had a connection relationship there, and we're taking their students through learning about how to use document management systems, how to use drawing systems, how to take some of the skills you might learn in front of an Xbox gaming and deploy those in a business environment. So we're doing the translation from what's it like, what's digital in a young person's life, and how does that transfer into business. So doing some preparatory work to make that part of the courses, so that the courses of the students who are coming out of college now, they're now better equipped than many of our staff are to ready for digital transformation. So much so that the work we did do with Glasgow, we're now rolling out that training in our own teams, because the students liked it so much. We think there's a good thing to bring into the business. So we need all the other skills about. I mean, I joined because I enjoyed. I said at the beginning about civil engineering. The thing I didn't say probably was it was about working outside, and I really like being outside in nature and doing stuff. So I spent a lot of time outside. And engineering and construction is a great environment to be outside if you're that sort of person. So we need all those basic skills about what people like in terms of outside working. But we do a lot of stuff in offices. We do a lot of stuff around computers. It's not all dirty, muddy sites. So the whole perception of construction needs to change as well. And there's a lot of work going on across the industry about how we can support that, so we can make it more attractive as in totality to young people coming.
I'm gonna jump onto something you said about the technological adoption and skills move. Elixir have just invested into what is a digital twin kind of school, right?
Okay.
Bear with me. If a kid could do 1,000 hours on Minecraft or Call of Duty, who's to say they can do 1,000 hours doing a physics degree at Harvard in a game? Who's to say that these children that invest, and young people and Gen Z that actually invest more time into technology, they're just trying to find something to do? And that's a reality. Things are moving so fast nowadays. The attention span is different because things are moving quickly. What would your thoughts be on something like that? So say, for example, you're going to build the original Wembley in a game.
Yeah.
McAlpine,
Yeah.
IP. They could spend thousands of hours. What's your interpretation on maybe what gamification could do for translation of skills? And also you can fail in a game. Things can go wrong. And that's health and safety, right? So what's your thoughts on that landscape?
So we do use some gamification in training.
Cool.
So we have our own plant business. So we have cranes, we have big tower cranes, and it's really sexy stuff, and hoists and fleet of vehicles. But our crane business works with partners who do virtual reality crane training, so crane driver training. So you can actually go into a cab, you can go into a real cab, and with the screens around you, you can do virtual reality training. So,
hey, get me on one of those HGVs.
Yeah, it's fabulous.
Let's go play.
So it's like that those sort of technologies are right for deployment in construction, because you've got a safe environment to train in. So yeah, definitely. But I also think it goes back to the point we're talking about data trust and amalgamating data and sharing and democratizing knowledge and learning. If you can think forward 5 years, if we could capture the learning of how to build the next Wembley Stadium from what we've done before, what we've done from the Emirates, what colleagues at Mace did at Tottenham, all these stadiums around the country, if we capture that in a digital environment, you can get a 20-year-old in who's a great leader who can run the next stadium project. They don't need 40 years experience of how to build a stadium. You share the knowledge and experience. So I think the potential of knowledge and insight arising from technology. We still need that context bit. We'll still need some grey hair and some experience to provide some advice and support mentoring. But if we can democratise the right way of doing things to everybody, then anyone who's got the right behaviour and culture and leadership skills can be in really senior positions in these businesses.
That's really refreshing to hear, I think.
I was just thinking that. I was just like, damn.
I think you think of construction. I think of construction firms. I just think I'm never going to get to the top unless I was 50, 60, and being and that's really of anyone listening.
We go to the events, bro. Like we go to the events. Like, come on,
They're
we
all-
are. I'm, pale, stale. It's a reality of the
It's like
industry.
when I lost out in that Resi Award.
You're not bitter, are you? Not bitter.
But like, yeah, man. What do you think on that, man? Like, 'cause that's really refreshing.
I mean, for me, like, I'm quite passionate about how education needs to change as a whole curriculum level. Like, and forgive me, it does make sense what I'm trying to say, but like, I used to love Roller Coaster Tycoon.
I love that.
Building,
SimCity.
you're building,
SimCity.
you're building stuff.
Yeah.
And it's fun and it's interesting because, and I learned so much more when there was one of my teachers at school. I love football, so they used to turn maths into football-related scenarios. Yeah. So much easier to learn,
Isn't it? Yeah.
So I think if you can, what you're doing, I think combining the technologies that you guys are talking about, God, it will make it so much better for kids to learn. And I think learning from an earlier age about getting into a certain career, maybe from 15, get into like gamification of construction and learn about it from an earlier age, you're just going to have the creme de la creme of kids by the time they're 20, 25, just being absolute experts. But unfortunately, at the moment with construction, it seems to be the kids about,
I think they're going to be bricklayers. That's
that's
the
what
reality.
happens, yeah.
Everyone just thinks bricklayer, and that's it. So like, what could someone do? So young Gen Z listening to this, right? You've just told us that one of the biggest legacy, and this is a statement that probably isn't even said on any media, as one of the biggest legacy infrastructure companies that has built the corridors from Scotland to Britain, that has built the most impressive, powerful, beautiful buildings from Canary Wharf being the highest tower to the stadiums, etc. You've just told us that literally McAlpine are pushing forward, thinking innovatively about tech, about gamification, about digital twins and data. How does a young Gen Z person that's listening to us now, because there's a number of them that contact us sometimes and bump into, how can they, you're MD, how can they get in touch with you? How can they show interest in such a cool thing, which is potentially rebuilding a new stadium or building something your favourite sports teams in?
That's a good question, actually. I'll be interested. I might apply, mate. So you did say.
Well, like all the corporate businesses, you can access our website and contact us through the website and all that sort of stuff. We sponsor college courses, university courses. We can contact you. You can get on those. We sponsor students through that sort of stuff. We sponsor students out of school through apprenticeships.
How would they stand out? I think.
How would they stand
like
out?
Colin with his video entry.
I've gone to Cambridge or whatever. I've got great degrees. Fine, look great on. Maybe not Cambridge. I'll probably offer me a job. I went to Portsmouth for 2-2. All right, which may or may not be me. How would I stand out? Like, is there a way to stand out? Is it video? Is it coming up with a digital
that 20-year-old that might build the stadium?
How can they stand out in a world of? I suspect you have an employment portal, like all the other companies.
Yeah.
How can they stand out
Yeah.
on that?
Yeah. That is a great question.
Should they slide
I'm sitting
into the
thinking about our
DMs?
employment portal. Oh my God, yeah. I would be, what I'm looking for, more than anything, is kind of cultural fit. So what's important to them? Is sustainability important to them? Do they see their skills in digital being applied in the future? Do they want to drive and challenge and change things? That's what we need is more people like that in construction. You and I both know construction well. It's full of a lot of people who don't want to change, where knowledge is power, expertise and reward that goes with expertise is rewarded. If we can break down some of that and we can make it accessible to anyone and everyone, then it's about behaviour, it's about culture. I don't need to tell you that. That's what you look for in people you work with. It's about like-minded people, and the business has a strong, purpose-driven agenda, a set of values, which we really do kind of try and live by. I'm challenged about it now and again, but we really do try and live by it. And we want to be a proper engineering builder. We want to understand how things are put together, because that expertise is largely falling away in the industry. So young people who've either got some of those engineering skills or are looking to follow that career and want some help, come and talk to us. If they're already in that sort of education space, come and talk to us. But over and above anything, sustainability and technology are the two things I'm looking for, people who really can get their head around that and them bringing ideas about how we can improve our business.
Grant, this has been brilliant. We've gone through the history of the timeline of Britain's cultural phenomena buildings, such as Wembley Stadium, where World Cup was won, right through.
It's been knocked down since, hasn't it?
Hey, but then but this is the point, it's the heritage, it's the culture, but then to end on a note where we're talking about that whole digital transformation, the data thing, which is so important today, but then moving into, well, actually there's new careers emerging. These careers aren't going anywhere, actually, there's more abundance of jobs. It's actually been wonderful to hear someone in your position, in your role, at such an incredible and large organisation that's done so much, talking about that. And I think that's what this podcast is about. Generationally Yours is about trying to say, like, there isn't a disconnect, there is opportunity, this is what we're trying to build, we all care, and we do care. So thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, I've really enjoyed the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you.